So you grew up under communism, is that correct?
Yes, yes it is.
Which country?
Poland.
Thank you. Why was there communism in Poland, in your country?
Really imposed by our friendly neighbor Russia, and so that's why we had it.
Is it something the Polish people wanted?
No, of course they didn't want it.
And the Polish people were instrumental in bringing it down, the collapse of the Soviet Union, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Under communism, there was an expression, everybody's equal, but they're all equally poor. Can you explain that?
Well, yes, because you have kind of limited access to any kind of goods. There is not much trading with other countries than just within these, communistic blocks. So, just like I said, we didn't have really access to, like, from my childish perspective, goods like, chocolate, let's say. Okay, it was not easily available, and there were many things like that. People could have like a car and TV and some basic furniture, but it's not that you're going to be going to any kind of exotic places for vacation or getting some unusual form of education or any kind of things like that.
But some people were better off. Those were the party members, right? And you weren't part of the party, of course, but the party members were better off. So you didn't get ahead through your own creativity and productivity, but through political correction.
Yes, and they, there's lots of repercussions for people who were talk against it. So, yep.
Was life easier or better in the city under communism or in the countryside? And
Well, that's a hard question. I think it was easier in the countryside, but it's a relative question. Depends what you like, what you're into. In the city, there were more jobs available. Like two of my uncles, they actually moved to Śląsk, Silesia, so they could get mining jobs, and they were providing for their families. They got some apartments from the government right away, so they had like this whole shebang in a sense. But in the countryside, you have to work for everything yourself. You have to probably commute farther and things like that. But then on the other hand, because my parents were having a little farm, we never really went hungry. We could make our own meats and had our own vegetables and bread. We made our own bread. Yes.
Yogurt even, or soured
Eggs,
milk.
Yep. We had milk because we had 2 cows.
You just had to work for it. You could even trade and barter with neighbors, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was like a great community back there, a really authentic community in the sense that everybody knew each other. There were small villages, and we had a local school, 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk from the school. Most kids lived. And you knew all of your neighbors, was really safe, and they would gather at each other's homes. We didn't have internet, we just had TV, like 2 channels, black and white, but people would visit each other and talk to each other a lot, and that's how you traded news and help each other. They would even help each other during like farm work, so it was really cool.
So if you ask me, the countryside sounds better than the city.
Well, yeah, I did not have the city experience. From my perspective, it looked kind of glamorous because people had maybe bigger cars, and they could sometimes city people, also city families, they had somebody working abroad, and they would bring money. They just had different goods, different experiences.
But the countryside, you had a different experience, a very beautiful life, right?
Well, yes. Well, we had our own house, ranch house with a garden, and it was really comfortable for the kids. I didn't understand it at the time. For me, it seemed like living in like apartment somewhere in the city was really cool because yes, the apartments were so small. You could have your own room. I shared my room with my 2 other siblings and my parents, so there was no glam in that. But so from a child's perspective, it seemed really neat. And to have like a small city apartment.
But retrospectively...
retrospectively, no way. Yes, that city life, out any day I would live the countryside life. But it also involved a lot of work, farm work, so you had to be...
But a little hard work never hurt anybody.
No, and we had, just like I said, plenty of food and, you know, nice people around, and my grandparents. It was great.
Thank you. Everybody talks about this propaganda under a totalitarian system. Was there propaganda, and did you believe it?
Well, there was a propaganda. Like, you would see party members, I think now, you know, in some countries, like let's say Russia, you see the marches whenever they have some holiday, okay? You see like marches of soldiers, and they're just really into their own nation and glorifying it and the leaders. So that was kind of similar. And from my perspective, when I was a child, I thought that was really cool. I thought that these people, they know what they're talking about. I have to trust them. They have my, you know, best interest at heart. Just which was not true at all, but it was very appealing to a young mind.
Now let me ask you this. But you also heard stories of people in the West. What was the West like? Like something over the rainbow, or did you have...
Well, yes, you have these legendary uncles of people that would live in, let's say, Germany, Western Germany, or they would live in, you know, somewhere like United States, which was just over the top. Everybody wanted to have an uncle that lived in the United States, because the kids would get packages, and these packages, they went through like a check system, that there is no any kind of too much of a bad influence brought into the country, but you know, they would get like really cool things like chewing gum, okay? And that was incredible. Like, I mean, what in the world? So, or they would have, or somebody would send them a pair of jeans. I remember when we could buy jeans, my sister bought them. Everybody was buying it. It was just so incredibly impressive. That is not just your ordinary set of clothes, but it was just very Western. It was a symbol of, you know, this Western world.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Relatively small child, so and I lived in the countryside, so we didn't really have much. Everybody were, I would say, equally poor. We had like one center place that was a local store, grocery store, and we from what I remember, we had matches there on the shelf. Very nice lady working, and that you could go and chat with, and we had lemonade. That's all I remember. Orangeada, it was called. And once in a while you will get supplies, like real supplies, some meat, sugar, you know, supplies for the family to consume, to eat. But that was all regulated, and you had a special little card that would tell you how much you're allowed to eat a month, or buy a month rather, from the store.
And that was it. Maybe you had basically vinegar and this orangeada.
Yes.
And then you'd have everything else rationed through a card system.
Yes, vinegar, that's right, we did have vinegar, matches, and orangeada. And that's what I remember. Maybe there were more things, but as a child I was interested in something
And
else.
the shopkeeper really had all the power, right?
Well, they didn't have any power. She was paid probably by the government, and she was just there, but there was not much to sell.
But she was the gatekeeper.
Yes, she was.
So you have a story about towards the end of communism, or near the end, you don't remember, but a candy bar story.
Yes, we had like a special store, havoc it was called, where you could buy some Western goods. And I went there with my sister. She wanted to get a Barbie doll, which she was, you know, stashing money for a while to get it. But what I saw in there was a candy bar, Mars. And I was just looking at it, is mesmerized. What in the world can be in that package? I could see that, you know, the black package and the red letters on it, and I was befuddled. I had no idea what can possibly inside of that package. So I found out later on, but at that moment it was a mystery.
And that is a good illustration that there was no real consumer goods under communism.
No, we did have some stuff, but it was all limited. You know, you could probably buy candy ordinarily, but not chocolate, nothing imported, like that extravagant. That came afterwards, and you could see almost overnight how when everything changed, from communism to democracy, it was just so swift, and so many goods were available afterwards. It was such a different reality very shortly.
Thank you. So because you lived in the countryside and not around the auspices of the government, freedom was not overly restricted in the countryside. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. It was, people were going about their lives, and there was no major reason to oppose anything, because you pretty much were doing what you'd be doing in any other circumstances.
And I think that's the way it is throughout history. Villages are usually pretty autonomous, and you do whatever you want to do.
Yes, I agree with that.
Now, John Paul, the Pope, and Lech Walesa, two Polish people, they brought down, or at least largely contributed to the fall of communism. And you, as a Polish person, would you say that's correct?
Yes, absolutely. We know that they were the main reasons why it all happened.
Yeah, the catalyst to bring it all down.
Yes.
So Polish people have never really liked this communism. They always found ways around it, and certainly if you lived in the countryside, you could find ways around it. And they did not like Moscow breathing down their neck, correct?
Not only that, they were also able to take it down.
Yes, thanks.